Hi there! In this video series, I would like to share the things that I've learned about Pulp while creating my first Playdate game, Magic Castle. If you're already familiar with Pulp's basics and would like to learn more techniques, then you're in the right place. Today I would like to talk about debugging strategies. When you launch a game in the Pulp editor, it's always a good idea to switch on the browser's developer tools. In this case, we're interested in the console tab. Now let's trigger the error. I like bugs that give me an error message. They're usually easy to reproduce, and the error message provides breadcrumbs and information that you can follow. In this case, something is wrong on line 53 of the movement logic script. So let's go there. We're in the movement logic script. We're on line 53. And we see that on line 53, we're trying to determine if the next tile is a solid tile, one that you can pass through. There is a variable called nextTileY, which initially is just the player's current y coordinate, but we're adding +1 to it because the player is going down. And when the player is going down, that means that with each step, you are adding a +1 to the y-axis. The error triggered when the player was on the edge of the screen, so it cannot determine what the next tile is because it falls out of bounds of this little world. And in this case, the solution is quite simple. We need to make those two tiles solid so that the player cannot go through them. And by not allowing the player to go through them, we basically solve the problem. So the last case was quite straightforward. Now let's discuss a situation when you know something is wrong, but it doesn't crash the whole game. This type of debugging is tricky and potentially very frustrating because you have to make an educated guess about why something is not working correctly. Here we see that no matter what, I cannot damage the enemy. And this is a bit more difficult to solve, but thankfully Pulp provides you with a very handy tool, and that's the log function. It doesn't show anything on the game screen. It's more like a behind the scenes message that only you can see in the console tab. Ignore all of the messages that you see here for a moment. I'll get back to them later. I want to check what is the defense of this enemy right here. My assumption is that I might have made a typo, so I would just log his defense at the start of the battle. You can log a variable by putting it in braces, like here, but it's always a good idea to add some additional text. Now when I start the battle, I see additional data. And that's also why the additional text is quite necessary. Otherwise, it's just a number, and that can get confusing really fast, especially if you're logging multiple variables. I see that the enemy's defense is way too high. It should be 5 instead of 500. So I can solve this by going back into my game script where all of the enemy stats are stored and changing the value from 500 to 5. And that solves the problem. But obviously, it could be something very different than in this example. Maybe the player damage variable was too high or too low. Maybe an event didn't fire properly and didn't set the enemy stats in the first place. Um, in those situations, I like to ask myself, what is the desired outcome and which systems are involved in this scenario? You probably noticed that when I entered the battle screen, I immediately got those two messages. Um, and then if I try to perform some sort of an action, I'll get even more. I've peppered the whole code base with those log messages, especially when something crucial is happening, like the player is getting hit, the player is casting a spell, you finished a quest, you lost a battle, you won a battle. I always start those messages with the word log to distinguish them from the debugging type logs, which are temporary and should be removed once you're done debugging. Thanks to this strategy, when something goes wrong, I just copy and paste the log message into the search bar, and I immediately go to one specific place in the code, and there's a very high chance that my issue is there somewhere. Um, it's a bit of a timeline thing if you think about it this way. Um, you can see how things are happening and changing as time goes by, and this can help you with locating the source of the issue. After implementing this technique, I noticed that I started to find issues in Pulp much quicker. Last one is just about splitting your code to smaller chunks. Um, in some cases, it's just about creating specific events for specific situations, but it's also about creating those logic containers that I already have a video about. This can really help tremendously with debugging, especially in Pulp. It is sometimes very difficult to even find what you're looking for, with this search option. And that's why I found that splitting things into smaller chunks helps tremendously. That's all in today's video. See you in the next one.